Hi, good evening. Welcome along to the Transfer Show. This time next week, the window will have closed by a matter of seconds. Oh, yes. Well, we know the final week is usually the start of a frantic rush for deals. We are here for it. Kaveh Solokol, Dharmesh Sheth with me this evening to talk you through everything that is moving. Now, Newcastle against Liverpool is the Monday night football, of course, and it has extra spice because of a certain Alexander Isak. Well, Eddie Howe has seen a £50 million bid for another striker rejected today. That's on the way for you. He's been hailed as the world's greatest goalkeeper, but is there room for Gianluigi Donnarumma at Manchester City? We look at the chances of that happening. And this time last year, Conor Gallagher was a late mover to Atletico Madrid, but is he heading back to the Premier League? Now, we're under an hour away from kick-off at St James's Park as Newcastle play Liverpool in the Monday Night Football. The host still looking to bolster their striking options as Alexander Isak's future hangs in the balance. They made a £50 million bid for Wolverhampton's Jørgen Strand Larsen today, but that was rejected, as Wolves say the Norwegian is not for sale. Keith Downey has more.
It's £50 million up front, no add-ons. Newcastle, of course, desperate for striker reinforcements. We all know the situation surrounding Alexander Isak. We still don't know yet if he will remain a Newcastle United player or move on this transfer window. Of course, they've been trying for other targets as well. Many of those deals have been stretched out, protracted. So they've gone to Wolves, attempted to bring in Strand Larsen, but Wolves have turned that offer down today. They say the player is not for sale. It will be interesting to see whether Newcastle go in with an improved bid for the Norwegian striker. But clearly, Eddie Howe looking for striking reinforcements. They don't want to overspend. I spoke to him just a couple of days ago in the build-up to this game. He says they don't want to overspend, but they know they need strikers in because they're playing not just in the Premier League this season, but they've got a Champions League campaign to contend with as well.
Yeah, Newcastle have kept us busy throughout this window. Kaveh, Isak, what's going to happen?
Well, I think the picture is going to become a lot clearer in the next 24, 48 hours, because if Liverpool are going to make another move for him, then obviously they're going to do it after tonight's game. But even if they were to make an improved bid, that may not be enough to get him out of Newcastle, because Newcastle have been very, very clear. They've got a valuation, and also they need to sign at least one replacement. Probably they need to sign another 2 forwards. So I don't think necessarily just because Liverpool are going to make an offer, that means he's going to end up being a Liverpool player. But I think just watch this space. Tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, the picture should become a lot clearer.
I think a big telltale sign was last week when Alexander Isak came out with his statement. What was particularly telling was the wording of Newcastle's response to that statement. They said that the terms and the conditions of a sale have not been met. So by simply saying that, there are terms and conditions for a sale. So they are prepared to sell Alexander Isak if a certain price is met and other conditions are met, i.e. them getting in replacements. They also said they don't expect those conditions to be met in this transfer window. That might be a way of telling Liverpool, in almost a thinly veiled way, you're going to have to raise your price, because if you do, there's probably a chance that Alexander Isak could still yet be sold in this transfer window because of how far it's gone between these two clubs. But it should be said here, and we have to reiterate it, Newcastle United's priority was to bring in replacements for him. Now, whether that will still be the case, because they seem to be running out of options as far as that's concerned. They've had another bid rejected today, even though that was more for a replacement for Callum Wilson. Are the strikers out there that are going to be able to replace Alexander Isak?
Well, let me ask you that. Are there the strikers out there?
Well, they wanted Hugo Ekitike. He's gone to Liverpool. And in a funny way, that might have made it more difficult for Liverpool to get Alexander Isak, because Newcastle United went all out to try and get him. They wanted Benjamin Sesko. They went all out to get Benjamin Sesko, but he wanted to go to Manchester United. So what other players can do what they think will be a similar job to Alexander Isak? Ollie Watkins was one that was mentioned. Kaveh's been speaking about Nicolas Jackson as well. It's whether the value that they get for those players this late in the window, because it's one thing them charging 130 to 150 million pounds for Alexander Isak. Two things will happen, because a club who Newcastle United are interested in one of their players in, they will say, well, we'll charge you at a zero, if they wanted to. And also, they'll be like, well, you've waited this late in the transfer window. to raise your price for Isak. So why don't we do the same to you? Because we know you've got the money now.
There's about 5 or 6 clubs in the Premier League who are looking to sign a forward. And a lot of people in the sort of industry think that this sort of Isak situation is blocking a lot of deals. And we need to wait and see what happens with Isak before clubs are really going to move when it comes to signing strikers. For instance, if Isak stays at Newcastle United, Arne Slot has said that Liverpool need to sign another forward. So would that mean that they would look elsewhere as well? This sort of pool of forwards who can play for the top Premier League clubs is getting smaller and smaller. At the start of the summer, there were players like Liam Delap, João Pedro, who were available as well. But as the clock ticks, you're going to be left with fewer and fewer options. But let's wait and see what happens with Isak.
Where's your gut feeling? Where will Isak be come 7 on deadline day, a week today?
I think it would be good for football if he stayed. I think, it's good for football that Newcastle carry on getting stronger and stronger. But obviously, we've been around the block a few times. We've seen this movie before. And more often than not, we know how it ends with the player getting what he wants. But on the other hand, I've seen a different ending to the movie as well, where the player sits down and signs a new contract and does a interview sort of saying, I'm really, really sorry, I had bad advice.
What do you think, Dharmesh?
I'm not going to sit on the fence.
Come on, what do you think?
I'm judging from what people in the industry are telling me, they expect him to leave. I would prefer him to stay.
Go. What do you think, Dharmesh?
I keep changing my mind about it.
Nobody cares what we think.
And the thing is,
I care.
I think once today is out of the way, as Carve's mentioning there, they just want to get this game out of the way because it's almost become a saga and a circus leading up to this game as well. It's just this Monday night football, you couldn't have timed it. You couldn't have made it up that Newcastle United would play Liverpool on the Monday night football a week out from the transfer window ending. But once this game is over, I think there will be some sort of clarity later on this week.
And the other thing is, I'm not saying Liverpool have engineered this situation, but tonight's game, they're going to be facing a Newcastle side who will be without Alexander Isak, which is obviously good news for Liverpool. And it sort of adds to, the arguments that people, especially managers, make, that the window should close before the season starts, because then you wouldn't have these kind of situations where Newcastle are going in to a really, really important game when their star player wants to join the opposition.
Yeah, fascinating this. Well, let's stay with strikers then, because Johan Wissa is still the subject of speculation as we head towards the deadline. He's yet to feature for Brentford this season as he seeks a move to Newcastle. But how does the Brentford boss see this one playing out?
It's just a decision based around what I feel is best for the group. Keep saying it, understanding of the situation, understanding of the market, what goes on. It's going on at every single club, I'd imagine, up and down the land. The disruptive nature of it, but the focus is on the group tomorrow, so Johan won't be involved. But as far as I'm concerned, there's been no movement in any way, and fully expect Johan to be here come next Tuesday. The focus is on the team, really. When you get close to games and in and around games, and the nature of it, the emotions of it, I think can be difficult. So what goes on exactly behind closed doors, we'll probably keep a lot of that exactly there. My stance hasn't really changed from day one of when I took over. I knew there was or would be interest in Johan. Naturally, when you score that amount of Premier League goals and you play as well as he did last season in particular, and he's built his career at this football club over the last 4 years where he's grown in stature, presence. Not surprised by it, and I haven't really changed throughout the whole time. I've been pretty consistent with my message around it, and it's not just because there's cameras here, it's how I genuinely feel.
Now, this seems so similar to the Isak situation. Player wants to go, club don't want him to go. Do you think that Johan Wissa will be a Brentford player come 7 next Monday?
Again, it's another saga that keeps rolling on, but rather like the Isak saga, they've chosen not to play him either. He's made it clear he wants to go. He made it clear that he wants to play for Newcastle United. I think a couple of things would have to happen, rather like the Isak situation, in that Brentford will want to bring in a replacement. They brought in Dango Ouattara, but he was generally thought of as a replacement for Brian Mbeumo. They didn't want to finish this window having lost both Mbeumo and Johan Wissa. Now, there was a time, if the timing earlier on in this window, had Newcastle United got Johan Wissa earlier in the window, they might have been able to complete that deal. But it came at a time when Manchester United were going for Mbeumo. And effectively, United got there first, completed that Mbeumo deal. And that's when the saga started with Wissa, in effect, because Brentford said, well, we can't let him go unless we bring in a replacement for him. So that's where we're at the moment. Brentford, as much as Wissa will want to go, Brentford will be telling him, we need to bring in that replacement. They're clearly looking to bring in a replacement, because in an ideal scenario, they don't want a player at the club who doesn't want to be there. But they also need to be set for the rest of the season. And at the moment, everything is up in the air. They've got a little less than 7 days. Yep, it's ticked below 7 days now to get this deal done. Not only Wissa to go to Newcastle, but for someone to come into Brentford as well.
Newcastle fans fuming that Liverpool are doing this to them. Are they not doing exactly the same thing to Brentford?
I've kind of heard that said, but I mean, Newcastle fans aren't just one mass. There are different people who think different things. I'm sure, obviously, a lot of Newcastle fans are very, very disappointed with the way Isak has been behaving. But I think the Wissa situation, maybe there's more than meets the eye. But obviously, both of them are talking about the fact, I think, that promises were made and promises have been broken. But guess what? That's the way the football business works. It's not very pleasant, but that's the way it works.
OK. All right, let's talk Arsenal, Dharmesh. Another signing in the offing. Tell us.
Yeah, I mean, Eberechi Eze was their 7th signing of the summer, close to £200 million spent, and we thought that was it. But it looks like they're exploring a deal for the Bayer Leverkusen defender, Piero Hincapié. He's an Ecuador international, is Hincapié. And although Arsenal's focus is purely, well, we thought was on departures, they're still trying to be in a position where they work out a deal with Leverkusen so that if they can agree and they can get the sales done, they'll be in a position to act for Hincapié. Leverkusen, though, they don't have to sell. He's got 4 years left on his contract. They are under pressure in one way because there is a release clause. It's around £52 million. So Arsenal can just meet that release clause. However, we don't think Arsenal want to pay that much. We think Arsenal want to negotiate on that release clause. And when I talk about the focus being on departures, that is starting to develop as well, because Jakub Kiwior hasn't featured in the squad for either of their opening 2 Premier League games, is not in the plans as far as Mikel Arteta is concerned, hasn't really nailed down a place for Arsenal. He's been playing in central defence, he's played at left-back as well, something that Hincapié can do as well, by the way. Porto are in talks with Arsenal over a deal for Jakub Kiwior. It's with a loan with an obligation, and that deal is worth around £23 million, including a potential loan fee for this season. So there are things in motion for Arsenal to be able, maybe, to be in a position that Hincapié could yet come to the Emirates. OK.
Do we think that Zinchenko will be an Arsenal player at the end of the window?
I think if he has his way and if Arsenal probably have their way, probably not. He's not in the plans, it doesn't seem either. They are listening to suitable offers for him. Fenerbahce really did push to try and get Zinchenko. They met with him. They tried to sort out a financial package. That couldn't be agreed upon. And then Fenerbahce switched their attentions to a holding midfielder in Alvarez from West Ham United. There are other players who Arsenal will listen to offers for as well. This one has been going on the entire window, Reece Nelson. We still believe that Fulham are in talks to try and sign Reece Nelson. It's just the makeup and the structure of that deal is still under discussion. Sky Germany is saying that Fabio Vieira's move to Stuttgart, that looks really, really difficult now, but there are other options for Fabio Vieira. Porto, again, could come back in for him. In fact, Porto might be interested in Zinchenko. So of all these players, it's Kiwior, Zinchenko and Fabio Vieira, 3 of the ones that they do want to listen to offers for. Porto seem to be interested in all of them.
Cool, be a great place to live. Some nice port wine as well. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk goalkeepers and Manchester City. Ederson, is he staying? And what's going on with Donnarumma? That and more to come. See you in a moment. Hello again. We're going to talk goalkeepers now, and in particular, Gianluigi Donnarumma. Dharmesh, do Manchester City get Donnarumma, but only if Ederson leaves?
It's a good question, because as it stands, Manchester City's intention is to keep Ederson at the club. However, they are very well aware that Ederson is into the final year of his contract, and this is amid Galatasaray pushing really hard to try and sign the player as well. Now, we understand that Manchester City have made initial contacts with PSG over the conditions of a deal for Gianluigi Donnarumma. Those initial inquiries highlighted a big gap in valuation, because PSG value Donnarumma upwards of £35 million, maybe as high as £43 million. he's got 1 year left on his contract, and there have been some soundings that maybe he feels, are they pricing me too high because they want me to go and I've only got a year left on my contract. But it should be said that because of the timing of this, there's less than a week to go in this window. The prospect of Ederson staying at Manchester City and Donnarumma staying at PSG is still live. And I think Donnarumma, as much as he would want to go and as much as PSG would want him to go because he's on big wages as well to get those off the books, there is an acceptance on all sides that Donnarumma could yet have to revisit and exit in January. It's not ideal, but it's going to depend on a number of factors. I know Carvey's got some extra information from the PSG side, but as far as that deal goes, it's still pretty much up in the air.
But he's waved goodbye to PSG. Everyone knows he wants out. Surely they'll do a deal.
I mean, first of all, even though he's leaving, he's got a very good relationship with everybody at PSG. He was at their game on Friday night. He said goodbye to the supporters. He had a personal meeting with the PSG president, Nasser Al-Khelaifi. That was an extremely emotional meeting. They talked about the old times, all the trophies they've won together, doubles, trebles, quadruples, Champions Leagues. And I think his relationship with key people at PSG is still so good that PSG will make sure that he gets a move in the next few days. Will it be Manchester City? I think that's dependent on what happens with other goalkeepers at Manchester City. Whether it's relevant or not, I don't know, but relations between the owners of PSG and the owners of Manchester City is very, very good. And I think Donnarumma definitely has the stature and the charisma to play for a club like Manchester City. And I think it would be a huge boost as well for the Premier League to have a goalkeeper as good as Donnarumma playing in the competition.
City have got 3 goalkeepers already. So how many of them have to go for Donnarumma to come in?
They've actually signed 2 goalkeepers this summer, haven't they? Because I remember I was out at the Club World Cup when they signed
4 goalkeepers.
They signed Marcus Bettinelli.
Yeah, Bettinelli.
And we were speaking to him.
Ortega's still there.
Ortega's still there.
Trafford and Ederson.
And I remember, I think, where were we? I think we were in Atlanta when we spoke to Ederson and Ortega after a game about their futures. And they were being asked questions by English reporters. And they were both very, very dismissive and didn't want to talk about their futures and were kind of, don't believe what you read. There's a lot of fake news out there. But it does appear that Manchester City may be wanting to sort of recycle their goalkeeping options. And a lot has been made of the fact that maybe Donnarumma, can't play out from the back or he doesn't come out for crosses, but he's probably the best goalkeeper in the world. And I think City fans would be very, very excited about the prospect of him signing for them. Having said that, of course, Ederson has been a fantastic servant to the club.
Fascinating. What do you think, Darmish? Will he be a City player come the end of the window, Donnarumma?
You love this, don't you?
I love it. I'm excited. The window's going to close.
If Ederson goes, then potentially, yes.
What do you think, Carvey?
I've got the feeling that if I close my eyes, I can imagine him coming out at the Etihad Stadium in a City goalkeeper's jersey.
That would be quite...
But I can imagine lots of things when I close my eyes.
I think we'll move on very, very quickly.
Football-related things.
All right, let's stay with goalkeepers. Manchester United, what are they going to do, Darmish? Get that out of your mind. I know, just clear your mind.
Closing my eyes.
Yeah, I know. Well...
Right, so we do know that they are after the goalkeeper from Royal Antwerp, Senny Lammens. Now, he actually was pulled out of the game in the Belgian league for Royal Antwerp against KV Mechelen over the weekend, and he wanted to play. The reason he was pulled out of that game is because Royal Antwerp did not want to harm the deal with Manchester United with him getting a potential injury. So
is he a number 1? Is he first choice? No, if he went to Manchester United, would he be number 1?
Well, this is the situation. So let me tell you about the deal first of all. The talks are advancing over a deal worth around £17.3 million. The payment structure is what is under discussion. Personal terms, not expected to be a problem. Now, initially, I was told that Manchester United were bringing in Lammens because they wanted to add to their goalkeeping department. But I've since been told in the last 24 hours not to rule out a departure in the goalkeeping department as well. And if you read between the lines about what's happening at United just now, we'll come to Rasmus Højlund and how Ruben Amorim has effectively let him know that he's got no further plans at Manchester United. Andre Onana is one to watch, I think, because he was on the bench yesterday. He was fully fit. He travelled with the squad to Fulham, but Ruben Amorim decided to pick Altay Bayındır again for the second game running. So I'm told not to rule out a departure in that goalkeeping department. Now, as far as Lamens is concerned, I know a lot of people have been saying Manchester United are signing yet another number 2. And if they feel that Andre Onana is a number 2 and Altay Bayındır is a number 2 and Tom Heaton may be a number 2, you've got a load of number 2s at Manchester United. Whereas I think if he was to come in and there was a departure in the goalkeeping department, then he would definitely be fighting it out to be Manchester United's number 1. That is what it would look like from the outset. But it looks like this one is accelerating. It looks like United want to get the deal done. Royal Antwerp, from all the noises that are coming from there, it's been played down a little bit on this side, but on their side, it looks like it's really, really close, this deal.
Okay.
£17.3 million, and there's a big reason why you don't pick him.
You mentioned Højlund. What's going on with him?
Right, so there have been developments with Rasmus Højlund, and this has come from Sky in Italy and our colleague Gianluca Di Marzio. Now, what we have been saying is that Napoli have been in talks with Manchester United over the signing of Rasmus Højlund. They were willing to do a loan with an obligation. That is because AC Milan went in with the deal earlier on in this window, which was a loan with an option. But United and Rasmus Højlund wanted a permanent element added to that deal. So now Napoli have come into the mix. Antonio Conte really wants to bring him to Napoli. Now, the issue here is that Højlund, of course, has been omitted from the first 2 games of the season. As I mentioned before, Ruben Amorim has made that message. It's a very thinly veiled message. You're not in the plans. But now Napoli are really pushing. That is because they are willing to add an obligation. On paper, it might look like a loan with an option, but that option could turn into an obligation depending on appearances, on goals and on Champions League qualification. So according to Sky in Italy, it looks like that one is moving a tad closer.
We know that they have to offload players. Any news on the others, on the bomb squad?
Yes, Anthony, Real Betis. I've been saying this the whole transfer window. They are still pushing to do a deal for the Manchester United forward, Anthony. The clubs are in contact, but up until now, Betis have been unable to match United's preference. United do not want to do another straight loan with Real Betis. And at the moment, Betis, however creative their loans are, that's all that they're proposing at the moment. So Betis will want to do this deal. Manchester United will want a permanent element in there somewhere. Anthony wants to go back. He had a fantastic time last season, 9 goals in 24 starts.
Right, we've got some breaking news here on the Transfer Show. And the breaking news is that Tyler Dibling is now an Everton player. He's moved from Southampton to Everton on a 4-year contract until the end of June 2029. We believe the fee is around £42 million. He has become David Moyes' 8th signing of the summer. Remember, he's still a teenager, isn't he, Dibling?
Yeah, I mean, fantastic signing for Everton. I think David Moyes is definitely cooking something at Everton. They made some great signings. When you think that they can have a sort of 3 forwards playing behind a striker of the quality of Ndiaye on one side, maybe Jack Grealish through the middle, Tyler Dibling, who has this reputation of being one of the best young players in the game at the moment. I remember a couple of months ago, people were talking about him as being a £100 million player. Obviously, Southampton are not going to get anywhere near that. We believe the fee is around £42 million. He is definitely a player who's got a big, big future at the game. And I think David Moyes just showing what a great manager he is. You know, sometimes when he was at West Ham, he used to get criticised, and when he was at other clubs as well, for the style of play, maybe his sides weren't that great to watch. But if you actually look at the sides that he's built, they've always had really, really exciting, creative players. And you look at this Everton side now, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of those kind of players. And I think Tyler Dibling could have a big, big future, not just at Everton, but at international level as well.
Yeah, the breaking news then. Tyler Dibling is now an Everton player, £42 million on a 4-year contract. Now, as this window has gone down, Nicolas Jackson, his stock has gone up. And now a European superpower is after the Chelsea striker. We'll give you all the details next.
Defender Piero Hincapié. He has a £52 million release clause.
Aston Villa continue to be linked with attacking options in the final week of the window. Chelsea pair Nicolas Jackson and Christopher Nkunku have both been mentioned.
FC Midtjylland in talks with Bournemouth over a £5 million deal for midfielder Philip Billing.
Manager Keith Andrews says he fully expects Johan Wissa to be at the club after the deadline has passed. He hasn't featured yet this season amid those links with Newcastle United.
Brighton manager Fabian Hertzler has an eye on more signings before the window closes.
Burnley are scanning the market for late deals, according to Scott Parker, but he says it's all about quality over quantity.
Chelsea midfielder Carney Chukwuemeka has completed his medical with Borussia Dortmund ahead of his £24 million move.
Crystal Palace are one of several Premier League clubs who've asked about Conor Gallagher's situation at Atletico Madrid. He only arrived in Spain, of course, a year ago.
Tyler Dibbling is now an Everton player. The club have confirmed his arrival from Southampton. He's their 8th signing this summer for £42 million.
Fulham head coach Marco Silva wants at least 3 new players in the final week of the window. Arsenal's Reece Nelson could be one of them.
Leeds United have signed fullback James Justin from Leicester City in a deal worth £10 million.
Liverpool left-back Kostas Tsimikas is a target for Roma. That's according to our colleagues at Sky in Italy.
And he's not in the squad tonight. Manchester City want to keep Ederson, but they've held talks with PSG over Gianluigi Donnarumma in case Ederson leaves.
Manchester United could be moving a few on this week. Rasmus Højlund is talking to Napoli over a loan with an obligation to buy.
Newcastle United have had a £50 million bid for Wolves striker Jørgen Strand Larsen rejected.
Nottingham Forest are talking to Strasbourg about a deal for winger Dilani Bakwa. But Leeds United have also been looking at the 22-year-old.
Sunderland may not be done in the window. Potential incomings could be influenced by the severity of Dan Ballard's groin injury.
Tottenham's hopes of signing Como's number 10, Nico Paz, are fading. Any deal is being complicated by financial obligations to his former club, Real Madrid.
West Ham United want to bring in reinforcements in the final week after conceding 8 goals in their first 2 games.
Wolves striker Fabio Silva is edging closer to a move to Borussia Dortmund. The clubs have been in talks for some time, and Dortmund are about £4 million away from the valuation, which is £26 million.
Now, could one of the longest transfer sagas of the summer be finally coming to an end? Alexander Isak has made no secret of his wish to leave Newcastle, with Liverpool the only club to have made a firm bid for him. Well, his stance has left him frozen out of Eddie Howe's team. But, speaking on the Monday Night Football, Thierry Henry says there's still a way back for the Sweden international at Newcastle.
The best thing for him is, I think for everybody, is if he can leave. But I also do believe that when someone makes a mistake, if it sees as a mistake after from his dressing room, if he apologizes, then we can move on. If he scores goals and he starts to play the same way he played last year, the Newcastle fans will be okay about it. The best for me right now, the way it is, I think the best for Liverpool and Newcastle is if he goes. But I do think also if someone does apologise, if it's seen as a mistake because we don't know what has been said inside the camp, I will accept it if I was a player, but he needs to apologise if he wants to come back.
So Thierry thinks still a chance of Isak being reintegrated. Right. Nicolas Jackson was linked with Newcastle as a replacement for Isak. So what's the latest on him?
Well, look, there are a lot of reports in Germany this afternoon which say that Bayern Munich are interested in signing Nicolas Jackson. Now, they are one of at least 5-6 clubs who are interested in signing him. Although, in the last few minutes, our colleagues at Sky Germany are downplaying the links with Bayern Munich. I think Bayern Munich would be interested potentially in taking him on loan, but a loan is of no interest whatsoever to Chelsea, unless it is a loan with an obligation, which basically is a permanent deal.
But wouldn't he just be a backup?
Well,
Harry Kane.
I mean, that's the thing, because at Chelsea, he wants to be the main man. And since they signed Delap and João Pedro, he knows he's not going to be the main man, although I think Chelsea would be happy for him to stay. So you are totally right. If he goes to Bayern Munich, the main man there, of course, is Harry Kane. But having said that, Bayern Munich are Bayern Munich. It's difficult to say no to Bayern Munich. But I just get a feeling that perhaps he would prefer to stay in the Premier League, and there is a lot of interest in him from Premier League clubs. What's holding it up is, I think, everyone's waiting to see, after tonight's game, what happens with Alexander Isak. Does he stay or does he leave? And that will have a knock-on effect to what happens with Nicolas Jackson. But I would expect him to leave. Having said that, he's still training with the Chelsea first-team squad. So he's not with the so-called bomb squad, because just like Christopher Nkunku, he's doing the same. Chelsea are just preparing for the fact that either or both of them might stay. And if they stay, then they could be reintegrated quickly into Enzo Maresca's plans.
Carver, you mentioned that the Isak deal could be like the domino that sets everything off. It could actually be the domino if Isak was to go for maybe Newcastle United to go for Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, either way, there is some interest from Newcastle United in him. I think, he's a very good player, Nicolas Jackson. Obviously, he wants to be the main man wherever he goes. There's just a little small question mark over his disciplinary record. Remember what happened at the end of last season with his sending off in the Club World Cup?
Also,
he got another red
big
card.
chances as well. So if you're Chelsea, we understand, want 80 to 100 million for a player who misses big chances, and who knows what Newcastle might get for Alexander Isak, but it may not be that much more than 100 million. So why would you buy a player that misses a lot?
The thing I say, I don't think he misses a lot.
Misses big chances.
I'm not sure that that's true, although I have seen some statistics, I don't know, XG or something it's called, that he doesn't...
So old school.
Yeah, I don't know, but there was some stuff I read about the fact that he doesn't finish as many chances as he should do. But having said that, he's a proven Premier League goalscorer. If he missed as many chances as you say he misses, then there wouldn't be all these clubs trying to sign him.
Yeah.
Now, your point about his valuation being 80 to 100 million pounds, his valuation is dictated by the market. If Alexander Isak is worth 150 million pounds, then I think Chelsea would say, well, Nicolas Jackson is worth 80 if Isak is worth 150. Now, I can see you rolling your eyes.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're going to get 80, but I think they will get somewhere in the ballpark of what Premier League clubs have been paying for strikers. And that would probably be between 60 and 80.
OK. Is Garnacho still a target for Chelsea?
Yes, 100%. The later it goes on, I think the more Chelsea will feel that they can get him lower than what Manchester United's valuation is of Garnacho. Manchester United, like Carvey was saying about Nicolas Jackson, comparing the market to other players who go for that certain amount of money. I was just going to use a comparison of Ekitike. He's never had any Premier League experience, and he went for 70 million. That Chelsea will look at that and say, well, this guy has got Premier League experience, and he has scored goals in the Premier League, so why can't we charge that much? By the same token, Manchester United will say about Alejandro Garnacho, well, Noni Madueke and Anthony Elanga, they went for £50 million plus. That's why we're valuing Garnacho at £50 million. The big difference here is that it's kind of been made clear that Manchester United are willing to sell him and that he's got no future at Manchester United under Ruben Amorim. So it seems. I know we're talking about there's always a way back. From the outset, it looks like there's 4 or 5 players, but there doesn't seem to be a way back. But there were reports emanating over the weekend that Manchester United's so-called bomb squad wouldn't be allowed to leave on the cheap. But the later we go in the window...
But they would say that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, but the later we go in the window, you wonder whether that ship has sailed a little bit, only because if they want to get rid of them, clubs are going to spot an opportunity, rather like Manchester United might spot an opportunity if they were in the other side of the equation. Yeah. So I think United will want to get these deals done as close to the market values that they have for these players, but then also there might be an element of them thinking, for far too many years, we have kept players that shouldn't have been here, rather like Arsenal did, and then Arsenal made that move, didn't they? Let's just cut our losses, start again. I wonder if Manchester United are thinking the same.
Also, when we're talking about Chelsea, we should mention how much money they've made from selling players this summer. I think they've made something like £270 million from moving on something like 16 or 17 players. So I know some clubs have been criticised for just buying and not selling, but you have to say Chelsea are very, very good when it comes to selling players as well as buying them.
Indeed. All right, we've got to take a break. When we come back, this time next week, the window will be shut and these two can take a breather because they're working very hard. All right, we'll look at some of the other business we're expecting to get done in the final few days. See you in a moment. Last part of the transfer show already. We're going to talk Conor Gallagher. This time last year, he was on his way to Atletico Madrid, wasn't he?
Atletico Madrid.
Now it looks like he might be coming back. Why?
Maybe. I think lots of clubs are interested in bringing him back to the Premier League. Crystal Palace, one of those clubs. If you remember, what was it, 3-4 seasons ago when he spent the season on loan at Crystal Palace from Chelsea, he made such a great impact, scored a lot of goals. He ended up being Palace's Player of the Year that season. Obviously, since then, he's left Chelsea last summer. He moved to Spain, I think in a deal worth around £36 million. Now, I think he's happy in La Liga. Speaking to some Athletic Madrid fans, money on the table, then more often than not, unless you're Real Madrid or Barcelona, you are going to listen to those offers. So I think it's a possibility, but I'm not sure that he will actually leave because the fans do like him and I think he's pretty settled in Spain.
Dharmesh, Palace have got a fair bit of cash in their pockets now. Do you expect them to be busy in the final few days?
Yeah, I mean, they'll want to replace Eberechi Eze, and how you begin to do that is anyone's guess, because it might not just take one player to come in, because they played in a certain way, because Eze was a pretty unique kind of footballer, wasn't he? So Conor Gallagher is a player they're clearly interested in. They've also been looking at Bilal Al-Khanous. We think that they've been close to a deal for the last week to try and bring him in from Leicester. Christos Zolis as well from Club Brugge was another player that they've been interested in. So with 7 days to go, they will definitely want to do business. And also, I'm sure Carvey can throw a bit more light on this one, that the Mark Gahey situation is still kind of hanging over them as well, isn't it?
Throw some light, Carvey.
Mark Gahey, I think we have to wait till tonight's game is out of the way. Also, Crystal Palace obviously have this really important second leg of their European playoff, which they need to navigate. They're only 1-0 up. It's really, really important for Palace that they're in the draw for the league phase of the Conference League. I think the draw is on Friday. So the picture should be clearer. I think at the moment we've got a little bit of a standoff between Crystal Palace and Liverpool, because Liverpool haven't been willing to increase their offer. But the player's in a really strong position to decide what he does, because he's always got the option of just staying at Palace until next summer.
OK, I want to whiz through a couple more possible deals. Nottingham Forest and Strasbourg doing some business. Tell us.
Well, obviously, Strasbourg are linked to Chelsea. Blue Co. own both clubs. We're being told that Nottingham Forest made an offer to Strasbourg for their winger, Delaney Bakwa. The offer is worth a total of €35 million, which I think is about £30 million. We're being told that Leeds United are also interested in signing him.
Is Carney Chukwuemeka a Borussia Dortmund player yet?
I think he's almost a Borussia Dortmund player. Borussia Dortmund are being very active. They're also in talks to sign Fabio Silva from Wolves. I think that deal is getting very, very close. If you remember, Fabio Silva, when he moved to Wolves from Porto, I think he was a club record, cost them £35 million. He was supposed to have a big, big future ahead of him. I think he was a little bit young when he moved to Wolves. He's been out on loan a lot, but I think Borussia Dortmund could be the sort of perfect stage for him as well. We've obviously seen so many players move to Borussia Dortmund and kind of use the club as a little bit of a stepping stone, although Dortmund fans do not like their club being described as a stepping stone.
I bet.
Just to reiterate some of the developing story we were bringing you earlier on Rasmus Højlund, just a bit more information from Sky in Italy, and this is to do with the Napoli bid, that the proposal that they've got. We think now that Rasmus Højlund is really, really open to this move, and they're close to an agreement, club to player. It's now trying to finalise that deal between Napoli and Manchester United. Remember, Manchester United won a permanent aspect attached to this deal. Now, the way that Napoli are trying to do it is to do a loan with an option which wouldn't be satisfactory, you don't think, to United, but that option becoming an obligation depending on appearances, Champions League qualification and goals. So it looks like that one will accelerate in the next couple of days.